Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Extravaganza with Lou and Mitch. This is your co host, Mitch Bernstein. Notice that I am without Lou because Lou has been taken a little ill, which is unfortunate. He is hopefully going to recover quickly. It's not serious, but he let me know that. He couldn't do this tonight, so he sent me the information, and I'm here. So we're going to get started. Looking forward to talking to our special guest, who will be up in just a few minutes. Couple of things I wanted to talk about first, and then we'll bring in we'll bring on our guest for this evening. Um, Biggest news for the day: Jen Powell will be the first woman umpire to umpire a Major League Baseball game. And that's going to take place this weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, when the Atlanta Braves take on the Marlins. I know that she has been umpiring in the minor leagues for many, many years. And Perry Barber, who's done a ton of games, thousands of games, and basically training a lot of women to become major league umpires, is ecstatic about this, and it's a historical moment for Major League Baseball. So it's really pretty cool. Um, I saw an interview with Lance Barksdale on YouTube a little bit ago, um, letting her know just to be herself and do what she's supposed to do. What she's been doing as she's been umpiring games in the minor leagues, and he was very impressed with what her technique was and her skills and her positioning. So she's learned this through her years training as an umpire. And my son of a gun today, she's got the call up, and she's going to be on the field this weekend. So kudos to Jen Powell for being the first woman to umpire a Major League Baseball game. Um, Next, I want to go over something that Lou and I talked about last week, which is very interesting to me, and we're going to talk to Don about this in just a few minutes because I'm intrigued and interested. So when I look at the standings and I look at the last 10 games in Major League Baseball for all these teams, just like it was last week and I think the week before, there aren't many teams going on streaks. Um, there's a lot of 500 and below teams playing in the last 10 games. The exceptions to that this past 10 games are the Red Sox, who are hot. They've won 7 in a row, and they're 9-1 in their last 10. So they are now ahead of the Yankees by 3 full games in the American League East. The Indians, the Guardians, are 7-3. The Tigers have come out of their slump, but they're only 6-4. So their lead has gone from about 11-6 right now. So that makes the Central Division a lot tighter. In the American League West, even though the Athletics are the hottest team, we know they ain't going anywhere. So, but nobody else. 6-4. The Mariners are 6-4. That's the next best record in the last 10 games, American League West. We go to the National League. My Phillies playing 500 ball, but the Mets are playing 200 ball. They're 2-8 in their last 10. I'm not complaining about that. The Marlins, they're 9 out. They're 6-2. So again, not a lot of people going on streaks. The Central Division. Don will like this. His Brewers are on a hot streak. They're 8-2 in the last 10. And Sarah Langs posted, I believe I saw this today. In their last 60 games, they're 44-16. Is that crazy? They are hot. And they have now overtaken the Cubs, and they're ahead by 3.5 games in the National League Central. Again, they're 8-2. Nobody else. The Pirates, okay, they're 6-4. And then we go to the National League West. The hottest team, the Padres. In their last 10, they're 8-2. The Dodgers, again, that division is getting tight. So it's shaping up to be an interesting rest of August and September. You never know. Wait, this is going to be fun. This is going to be an interesting season to watch as we go forward. Thinking that the Tigers are going to run away with this, thinking that the Yankees, for all they had at the beginning and the middle of the season, have tanked. They're not doing well. The Red Sox have pulled up, so good for them. The Astros are ahead. They're only up by 3. Seattle's done some good. They're 8 over 500, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun season to watch. That's all I got for now, because what I want to do, he is, as my partner Don would say, he's in the bullpen, and you really weren't in the bullpen in the Brewers. You were in the bullpen in overseas somewhat, so a little bit. So let's bring him on. There he is, Don August. Hi, Don. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for coming on.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. I love the book, man.
There it is. Look at that good looking guy.
There were so many times I was laughing reading some of this stuff. And so we're going to go over that in a little bit. But before we do, if I can, I want to talk to you a little bit about some things about you when you were growing up. Who did you follow? Who did you idolize before you got to the major leagues?
Well, I grew up in the LA area. So I grew up watching the Dodgers and the Angels. Some people would say, well, you can't like them both. I go, yes, I can. One's in the National League, one's in the American League. I wanted a Freeway World Series. So, yeah, I could do both. So those are the teams I watched. I mean, I knew all the players as a kid and idolized them and the whole works.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear from folks who have pitched, who are major league players. Who do they aspire to be? Who do they want to be? And, I know you did. I know I did. Grew up watching the game. Loved the game. Played senior league baseball. Absolutely had a blast. If I could play one more year and not let my wife know, I would love it. But after an Achilles tendon tear and assorted injuries and 7 stitches in between these fingers, catching a ball in the outfield, my excuse is the ball knuckled. I actually caught it. I pushed the ball into my mitt with these fingers. My tips of my fingers got numb. I looked down. I go, oh, damn. I'm going to have to get stitches. Damn it. But being on the field and being with the guys is awesome, as you have witnessed, both in states and overseas. Another question I wanted to ask you, because I read it in the book too, Major League Baseball politics. So let me give you an example. So the Phillies, I'll go with my team, are playing Max Kepler on a regular basis. He's been playing all year. He's hitting 200. They picked up Harrison Bader at the deadline. Everybody was thinking, good, let's DFA Kepler and let Bader play on a regular basis. I go tweeting it out. Some people call me a clown. Some people calling me a buffoon because I don't like the manager, what he's been doing. Somebody else tweeted out to me, responded and said, Mitch, this is all about Dombrowski and Middleton. I said, what do you mean? They don't want to admit a mistake and they don't want to let him go because that admits a mistake? And they said, yeah, basically that's it. Is that how Major League Baseball works sometimes?
I think Major League Baseball works in lots of ways. It just all depends on the moment, where your team is at, what's going on. They're just trying to get, the players come together. And yeah, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, that we don't know about, conversations, promises, things that they say they would do and so on. But yeah, if they're thinking about getting rid of Kepler or not, well, there must be something more to that. I mean, he does have some value, even though he is struggling, but there's some things that he does contribute. But, looks to me by getting Bader that, he's going to be the guy to step in and, maybe there's something in the back that, Kepler may be doing. but yeah, who knows what agents and general managers and all the other people have, to deal with. So there could be a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's frustrating to the fans, right? We don't want to see Kepler. He's hitting 200. Of course, the, I will tell you this. I am the reverse jinxer. So several times I had somebody on from Philly, and I think I was bashing Castellanos because he goes through these stretches and he swings the balls 15 feet outside, and I was like, what is he looking at? And Turner does the same thing. And what happens that night, Castellanos hits a home run. Well, I'm bashing Kepler last night. What did he do? He hits a freaking home run and he hits a double. I'm like, what? So I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but it's.
Sometimes I think that's me too, because I yell at the TV when I'm watching my Brewers, and I start putting a guy down. I mean, oh God, about a couple months ago, if that long ago, whatever it was, a month and a half or whatever it was, Durbin for the Brewers. I go, gosh darn, every time he hits the ball, he chops it in the ground. I mean, I don't know if this is going to work. Well, geez, he's been hitting like 340 for the last, 30-something games. So, I mean, as soon as you start saying something, it's going to turn around and get you. So
it's so funny.
Very happy with what Durbin's doing and a lot of those moves that the Brewers make, because the fans here in Milwaukee, we had that trade deadline come and go, and we didn't really do anything at all in there. But yet the Brewers keep finding ways to win. And, well, if you win, people will be happy. When you lose, regardless of what you do or don't do, the fans are going to be upset either way if you lose. So
yeah, it's as a baseball fan for over 60 years, and every year's different, and it's so much fun to watch. And I also love watching the younger players come up. To me, it's really cool. Not necessarily on the Phillies, but it's just so cool watching these guys come in and make an impact really quickly. And I'm sure you've seen that and you've witnessed it too. It's just these guys have it, and they're gonna do it, and they become popular, and they play well. And again, I love the fact that I can see these players coming in and make an impact right away. It's really fun to watch.
Well, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's the growing pains, and you got to get through it. Talk about the young players here, but talk about my Brewers again. I mean, Sal Frelick is a kid that just come up. Bryce Terang, we got a couple of guys there. McGill, the closer. I mean, where did he come from? I think that what the Brewers do is they got to rely on having a good farm system and good coaching, because they get these guys who've struggled, and then somehow they make some kind of an adjustment and they become world killers. McGill's like a premier closer, I think. And, we had a kid named Tobias Myers who struggled, in the minors, lost 14 games and only had one win 1 year, something like that. Then last season he just goes off and he's made a big splash, and he's hardly been doing anything this year because there's other guys that have stepped up. I think he might have had an injury or something, and some guys have stepped up, and it's just crazy. So the Brewers know how to find these guys, like starting pitcher Quinn Priester. And, we got him in some kind of a little bit of a trade early in the season, and he comes in. I think he's had 12 straight games where the team has won, or he's got a winning decisions and stuff like that. So, these young guys, it is nice, but small market teams like the Brewers, we got to rely on that kind of stuff, so because we can't go out there ever. Because I always scream, why don't we ever go spend the big bucks and get one guy one time, and
right.
But they've learned to figure out the other way. So,
well, and I think, and you would credit that to the manager and the coaching staff, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, their scouting department, they're developing. The minor league coaches are. I think they see what these guys do, and they pick certain guys that just maybe they throw a ball in a certain way, and they go, oh, he doesn't have it. But from what we've learned, if we just do this little tweak this arm here, and they do this or that, and next thing you know, we think we'll get better spin rate, which I don't like talking about spin rate and all that modern day crappy but they use it, and some things kind of work out, and they develop these guys. So that's the way we have to do it in small market world.
Gotcha. Very interesting. All right, let's get to the book. So I'm reading the book, and I'm looking, and I'm ready for you to come on, beginning of the week, and I'm looking at the title, and I think it hit me. Why was it called Pitching to the Corners? And tell me if I'm right.
All right.
Does that mean pitching to the corners of the earth?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Okay, good. I figured that out. 1 point for me, Don.
There you go.
So, so folks, after reading the book, I want to highlight your adaptability. And you were not old. You were kind of young when you did this. Your adaptability, your perseverance, and your flexibility. So I was when I finished, I was like, I gotta. Yeah, he had to persevere. He wanted to get back to the major leagues. He had to adapt going overseas, and we're going to talk about that. And you had to be flexible in terms of, as a person, you had to be flexible. You had to take it and deal with what came up on a day-to-day basis when you went overseas. So that wasn't easy. Reading the book, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics here in a minute. But I was impressed by your ability to do all that. And it took a certain mindset, didn't it?
Yes. Definitely is your mind. You have to have the ability to daily realize you're not at home. You're in a different place. Things are going to be done differently than being in America. You got to accept that. And every day, it seemed like I was trying to solve some kind of a problem daily in a different language. Either someone speaking kind of broken English to me, or me trying to speak another language that I just barely have a grasp upon, and things don't always work out. And in the book, I kind of get it out there. And that was a saying that I learned early on when I started, traveling around, was you just have to laugh. The healing power of laughter is what me and my first original kind of buddies kind of came up with. And it really did help. If you just laugh it off, things eventually work out, and you take it from there. And it's a mindset that you got to take on if you're going to survive. I've mentioned in the book, there are many players that I knew from the past, playing against in the major leagues or even the minor leagues here. They're great, good, awesome ball players, but they go somewhere different and they'd mentally lose it. They couldn't handle it. The daily life. I mean, trying to survive just the day, let alone then go out and play in a professional baseball game and always have to be good. And there's a lot of things that to deal with, the language, the food, and just your basic survival, and I just tried. I always felt that I was the guy that was kind of adventurous, I was like, I like to go out and just go take it on, had the right frame of mind, and whatever happens, and you just have a good time with it. So kind of the approach I took, but yeah, it takes a lot there. So a lot of guys mentally break and just crumble.
Yeah, you mentioned that so many guys just couldn't handle it and they up and left. You had a couple of challenges, and a couple I have loves, challenges, and dislikes. You had to get around on a scooter.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You like that scooter? Do you have one now?
No, scooters scared the crap out of me. I didn't go on for a few years. It wasn't until, my fourth year in Taiwan before I broke down and actually got a scooter. Mm-hmm. Because all the other guys did. And then I was the only solo guy going in cabs and chasing them around in a cab while they're on a scooter or right on the back of one. They freaked me out, but I had to do it. And I tell people, it is amazing I'm alive today that I survived riding a scooter there for 2 years and didn't get killed. So here I made it.
Kind of like sitting on the curb as people were driving 35 miles an hour past you while you're on the side eating it, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's just, things are just done differently, and eventually that just becomes your normal life, and you go do it. Just eating food, is a whole different thing. Eating it and knowing where to get your food and how to go about doing the business. Yeah, a lot of times just sitting on these little plastic chairs on the edge of the sidewalk, and there's the curb, and right there's a street, and cars are flying by, and these people put up their own little food carts right in front of a business, right in front of their front doors. I go, how come these people in their business, maybe like a little convenience store, and here's a guy cooking food right in front of the place, and it's just the way things work out. And you sit there and you eat, and cars are whizzing by you at 35 miles an hour or so, and you're sucking in their exhaust while you're using your chopsticks and eating a meal.
So obviously the big piece, the main part of the book is you trying to get back to the major leagues.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So go through, if you can, with us, the Taiwan experience, which lasted a lot longer than the Italian experience, and then you kept, I mean, it was tough. And I give kudos to your wife, Tammy, right?
Yes.
And Logan, your son.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy for them.
No.
I know I got a summer camp job working overnight camp for the first time after working day camps and being home every night for years. And the day after camp ended, my wife and I went to lunch, and I said to her, I said, I may want to go back again. And I didn't look at her. I said, I have a chance to go overseas, which I've never been, to recruit counselors. Daggers. I got daggers because I was away from every weekend. This is just me. Every weekend, because they had rental groups on the weekends from June through October. She heard that. I wasn't going back to that camp.
Yeah.
So your wife did it for how many years? So let's talk about that whole experience of you getting there, playing, doing pretty well, coming back. So give us an all-encompassing, if you could, chronological from your first time out to Taiwan to Italy, and then in between what happened.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to start at Taiwan because before that, there was Mexico and a few winter ball stuff.
Yeah.
But Taiwan came upon, I got back, well, there was that strike and all that kind of stuff in 1994 with Major League Baseball. I was playing in Mexico, end of their season. I made it back with the Padres. I get an opportunity. It kind of fell apart with some weird things that took place, which is in the book. And then I got a spring training opportunity, which was the year, 1994 was the strike season, no World Series. Then that following spring training in 95, things weren't fixed up yet between the union and the owners. But I did get a job to go with the Pirates to go to spring training. But then there's that replacement player stuff. So there's a lot of turmoil going on. Here's my chance. I mean, yeah. I kicked butt for 2 years playing down in the Mexican League.
Right.
And then my chances, just weird off the wall things like, a guy that was going to be an assistant general manager gets fired when he had this big plan for me, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, so I'm with the Pirates AAA team in 1995, starting the season. The strike got settled, but there are still players to be sent down. They had expanded the spring training. They had expanded rosters. Then, all this trickle down stuff. So I'm pitching with the AAA team, and then I get let go. And then the scout again who drafted me out of college and got me to the Padres and all that kind of stuff, he said, I can get you to Taiwan. So that wasn't really the thing I wanted to do, but he was the guy, because I know these guys that place American players there in Taiwan, and there happens to be, which I was always surprised by when they told me this, but there was a specific owner in Taiwan that wanted me. Like, God, really? Me? Okay. So there was a team that they had set up if something were to happen. So when I did get released, I thought, man, my chances of getting back in a minor league team during that season was probably not much. 'Cause normally, after the season starts, they don't start making moves and pulling people in, till, middle of May, usually to the latter part of me, sometimes sooner or later, but, basically. And then they still had all these things that have to take place. And it's just, baseball was just a big mess. So I just said, you know what? I'm gonna let this all simmer down. I'm gonna go see what Taiwan looks like over there in Asia, and see what baseball is all about. So I took them on that offer, and they got me placed to Taiwan. So my original plan was just to go there. They were paying me some decent money for how things were back in that day. Mm-hmm. And I'd play that season out. And then the following season, let's go find a team back here in the States. So I go there and finish out the year. Very different, very crazy how things are all done over there. I was able to handle the culture shock, but, I'd already played a couple of years in the Mexican League. I've already been to Puerto Rico and the Dominican. And so I kind of had a feeling for, how to handle myself and take things on. And, after I that season ended, I wasn't going to go back because I wanted to play in the States, but that wasn't happening. But the owner I had was kind of a ruthless guy. He made his rules up that he came out on top, and he kind of bargained with us wrong and treated us really not that good. So I wasn't coming back. I finally said I'm going to come back just so that I can get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother story. I can go on forever on that. But anyway, I didn't get an opportunity back in the States. I go, well, I do have a contract sitting there. I mean, so I'll go back. And in the meantime, like I said, our owner was so bad that the other owners kicked him out of the league between those seasons. So all of a sudden I found, we got a new owner. And a couple of guys I knew were going to go back, and they said, hey, man, this guy's a pretty good guy. They met him and talked to him. So I was honored my contract that I did have. And so I went back for a second year. So the idea really, and all throughout this whole story, is as long as you're playing somewhere and you got a uniform on your back, you always got a chance. Someone can see you anywhere. So that was my mindset. Well, I mean, I did very well over there, but they didn't know much about Taiwan baseball at that time. And how well I was doing. Well, how good is that really? They didn't really know. So it turned into 5 years of being in Taiwan. One of the years I was the MVP of the league and I had all this success, and still they didn't want to pull the trigger for me. And maybe, people have you labeled of, they love you at one point, then they can hate you. It just depends on who gets on the bandwagon. And, there's always the young guys already, they're moving up every year and, and that sort of thing. So I did do 5 years of Taiwan, and I thought, okay, that's about it. And then in my book, I kind of state, I met a lot of other American players who I met, in these other foreign lands. And one of the guys told me about Italy, and he kind of stuck something in my mind, like at least 3 years or so, or 4 years before I left Taiwan. He says, before you ever decide to quit, play one more year, go to Italy, you'll enjoy it. So after that 5th year of Taiwan, I kind of remembered that. So I found some contacts and people to talk to, and I went to Italy, which would be my final year of professional baseball altogether. Mm-hmm. And I've never been to Europe either, so let's go see what this is all about. So I was able to go over there, and I loved it. That was a great experience. And my wife and my son were able to travel to these other places. It was real hard, trying to bring the family around the world. My son was very young at the time, and that was the real hard thing, making sure they're always okay. So Taiwan was tough. Going to Italy and being in Europe, that's more similar to being in the United States than Taiwan is, in Asia in a lot of ways, So, but, that would be my final year, and that was a great way to end it. But, yeah, just kind of one thing led to another. Never got the chance back in the States, though. While in Taiwan, Japan, right next door, basically, they would always grab the top players out of the Taiwan leagues, and you'd have a chance there. They pay you very well, and you'd be more recognizable for opportunities back in the United States. And so I was kind of hoping for that angle. And, the 1 year that I'm the MVP and all that kind of stuff, I thought I was a lock-in to go play in Japan, because they're only allowed to bring 2 non-Japanese players. They were going to go to a third one that 1 year. And
right.
But then there was like a big major recession and stuff like that hit Japan, and their yen devalued, and they couldn't, so they went down to 1 player, and that was just my bad luck sometimes. So that's the way baseball is, for you to make the major leagues. Well, yeah, you got to be good for sure. But there's a lot of guys who are good, but you got to get lucky that the breaks fall your way. The right person sees you on the right day. One day they see you did great, or they could have been the next day they see you doing bad. And that's the impression they can get. So it's just a lot of breaks and just how things go. And, you wonder sometimes how do certain major leaguers, Hall of Fame guys who have 18 to 20 year careers and put up these outstanding numbers. If you talk to them, they can tell you, we're lucky. How are you lucky? A lot of things bounced right for them at the right times, And that's just how the game is. That was what, it actually makes it special, because it is what it is, and things turn out in ways sometimes you can't understand.
And that's the way life is too. I mean, I look at myself and my wife and my 2 kids, timing is everything in terms of getting a job. Because you don't know what they're talking about behind closed doors after the interview. They didn't like you. They got somebody else. You don't know.
Right.
So yeah, you ran into this, unfortunately, especially with when I was reading the book, 3-2-1, there goes your shot, right? There may hopefully, but it didn't happen. But nothing that you didn't do. That it
Well,
wasn't
just
your fault.
something I guess kind of share was that time that I already been to Mexico and I was getting my chance with the Pirates supposedly, but I had a deal with the Atlanta Braves. I was actually going to the telephone to solidify and finalize that deal. And as I'm actually walking the phone, the Pirates were calling me. Like, oh no, I'm not interested in, being a replacement player. No. So they were wanting the same thing as the Braves, but I could have went with the Braves or I could with the Pirates. Turn left, turn right. How does it change your life just by what decision you're making? Certain things happen, and fate is what it is.
Right. And I felt in the book that you never really, you were frustrated, but you never really got angry about anything because this was something that you just couldn't control. Right? Is that right?
Yeah. There's so many things that you can't control.
Yeah.
All you can control is what's presently in your face. And
exactly.
That's what you just respond to. You respond to things that are out of control to you. So I was always trying to respond and just, I always felt that you gotta keep yourself calm and don't get overly excited because then you make rash emotional decisions and you just take it on. You can't get mad. If someone says they don't like you, and all right, well, you move on to the next
you can do exactly
opportunity. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, and I was also interested. Again, you mentioned the language. How many languages? I mean, you Spanish, Chinese, and you went to autograph sessions, and you had to learn how to write your name with those images. I thought that was pretty impressive. Did you have a little cheat sheet next to you, or did you memorize it?
Someone wrote when I first got to Taiwan, and people say, yeah, they're gonna want some autographs, but they're gonna want your Chinese name. Oh, so they wrote my name down on a piece of paper, and I just practiced it over and over and over for about maybe not quite a week, but enough days that I was able to memorize and do it all. And that's what they wanted. And, when I learned to write it, I didn't learn to write it properly, like how they teach you as a kid in school. They go from top to bottom.
Right.
And they work from left to right in the same time. So I just I wrote the line at the bottom up and I put a little squiggly thing in and I put that there. So I'm going up and then I come back down. So when I was signing my autographs to some of in front of the Taiwanese people, they'd be smiling and laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? Oh, you write like a little kid and you don't do it right. But it turns out.
Right. Exactly.
So you go down and it's like top. Okay, now the next thing you go from left to right, and then you go back this way, and then left and right up, and So there's rules, but I didn't know the rules, but it looked cute to them, I guess.
Exactly. So something else I want to talk about. This was probably the funniest story I want you to share.
I'm curious to know what you find funny. Yeah.
I'm thinking that when your scooter was getting repaired, the guy was asking you a question. And you had an interpretation that you weren't quite sure what it was, and it turned out to be something a little bit better than it turned out.
Well, that there is called language barriers and miscommunications. So I'll set it up by when you speak Chinese, they speak in 4 different tones. So just for the one word ma, very simple. Ma, 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 ma. Those meant 4 different things there. So me trying to learn to understand Chinese, ma sounds like normal to me, especially when they're mixing it in with a lot of other syllables, So sometimes one little inflection, one little slight change of the word can mean a lot of different things. Now, simply the word tongue can mean whatever inflection, those 4 different inflections. One means sugar, one means soup. So the one time I say, hey, I'll go tongue, means I want soup, which I thought. And the waitress lady, she brought back and set some sugar down on the table because I didn't say it correctly, But now this one word, the story that you're referring to was when I did buy my scooter, connects back to that. I bought it from this guy just off this side street somewhere. Me and another teammate found, and with that, he spoke 0 English, and I'm trying to do the best I can in what very little survival Chinese that I was able to learn at that point. And so we purchased this scooter from him, but he's a big time baseball fan. He recognized me and my teammate. He just was just as happy as a person could be. So whenever I would go back to him to get an oil change or have this fixed up or whatever, he'd be in the middle of the day. He never knew when I was coming. And all of a sudden I'd show up, he'd just get all lit up and excited. And he had quit working and he'd always send one of his workers to go bring back I've learned this as it happened many times. And next thing you know, the guy comes back with a case of Heineken beer. And he wants to talk to me, which again, he spoke zero English. And we'd sit there and drink these beers and right on the sidewalk, which was all greasy with tools and scooter parts. And it was just crazy. And we sit there for hours just trying to figure things out, using our hands, and he'd draw pictures and all these different things, So next, sometimes hours fly by and I'd see you later. Got my oil change or whatever. Well, the one time he was saying a word to me and I was hearing sui jiao, which I go, oh, that means to sleep. So I go, okay. So I'm trying to ask him like, well, why are you saying that? Sui jiao. And I go, do I look tired to you? And he goes, no. Male. That's how they say it in Chinese. And he goes a little longer. I go, do I look like I'm tired? Then maybe I should take a rest before I drive back to my apartment. And maybe I've had too many Heinekens and he wanted me to sleep. And no. And then, I started wondering, after all this went through, the last thing that came to my mind is he wants to sleep with me. He keeps on saying he wants to sleep with me. He drew pictures of half of a moon and stuff like that, at nighttime moon. So I'm like, oh man, I ain't going to sleep with the guy. I liked him, but in the book, I didn't like him that much, So this is getting really awkward, very awkward. I'm like, okay, I want to get out of here. I go, then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I take a shot at calling my translator guy at his apartment, it wasn't cell phone. So it was a landline and I'm hoping that he'd be there. So we have to use to answer phones that time. You had to be at the home where the landline went into. So he actually answered the phone. I said, his English name was Kevin. I go, Kevin, this guy's asking me to sleep with him or something like, I don't know. Am I messing up here or what the deal is? So I handed him the phone and, they're on the phone 20 to 30 seconds. And I got the phone back. He's not asking you to sleep. He's asking you to have dumplings. Sui jiao is sleep. Sui jiao is dumplings. He's asking you to spend time with him and his family and share a meal. And I'm asking I thought he wanted me to sleep with him, So one little syllable inflection and that sort of thing really threw the meaning drastically from one direction to the other. So
I could not stop laughing when I read that. I'm dying. And that's, hey, you figured it out. You were flexible. You're adaptable. You did this as a young guy and it was impressive. So there are two things I put out here, and as a contest, I'm hoping somebody wants to try and answer. What two things does Don say he needed to have or do when playing overseas? Guess correctly, and you'll win some baseball cards, which I will send to the person. Now, you already mentioned it early. I'm not gonna say what it is, but I know. At least, and that's more. You needed more than two, but these were the two that stuck out.
Two essential things.
Essential things. Something you had to do, which you've already stated, and something really essential that you needed to take with you all the time. We'll leave it at that.
Nearby you always, because these situations required you to have these nearby and key situations.
Wow. Again, very interesting. And as I'm reading this book, thinking about what came up was the guys that you were with, they could have challenged the guys on Bull Durham on that team, on Costner's, on the Bears, to their adventures, like turning on the hose to get a rain out.
Yeah.
You had some crazy guys, and you guys did like to go out and drink a lot, so that was kind of fun for you too, right? That was never a dull moment.
What else are you gonna do? We did spend a lot of idle time, especially, you can't go out every single night, we went out enough to have some fun, get out. We can't just be cooped up in your own little hotel room or tiny apartment. And if you remember, the first apartment they put me in was worse than a college dorm room. It was, I called it the jail cell.
Yeah.
So, you learn to get out and have a little fun and do this. So, I I find the guys who are just as adventurous as me, and
Mm-hmm.
we get out and we did have a lot of fun. Just didn't stick in and, get culture shock and freaked out and things like that. We went out and took it on. So it was good to have certain other guys that were like that too.
Yeah, which is better. And you said understanding Spanish is always better with beer. Always help with.
It might be better with beer. We can keep that. But I say, as soon as I started having a couple of beers or a drink or two, I don't know, maybe my brain would relax and I can hear and understand the language a lot better. And then I'd hear it and I'd speak it back and I'd be communicating. And I'm like, wow, I'm getting good at this, right? I always like, man, I'm getting good at this now. And then the next day I'd like it. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now it was just, I was always okay at doing it, but I get confident that I was getting good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back to reality, back to the struggle. But I always knew I ended up having, I made it an effort to try to learn the language. I mean, like the first couple of days that I was in Taiwan, I found a little bookstore around the corner from the hotel that I was staying at my first days. And I found a little Chinese to English little book. And I was starting to study that thing. And I tried, and I always would practice with my teammates just to kind of, learn to do it. So, I did that in Spanish. I grew up understanding a little bit of Spanish. I grew up inside the LA area and, and I took it in high school and then, but you really learn it when you have to use it for real, not going on a vacation on a weekend at a resort place. I mean, when you're out in the streets looking for food and trying to find your way home and that's what you really it starts sinking in and it comes out. So Spanish was very helpful, but I had my dictionary. I get a newspaper and I'd read the paper. And if I didn't know a word, I'd look it up. I read signs on the street. So it really makes a big difference in helping you get to meet your needs.
Yeah.
But the local people there, they will appreciate you when you're trying. Yes. You might be staggering and stuttering and saying a word, but they can follow along and break it down. But they're going to try real hard to help you.
Yeah.
And then there's that image of what Americans are. We're kind of these arrogant people going to their country and expecting them to speak English, and we're kind of rude at them. So they see that, but if you come out being a good, person trying, there's good people around the world. They'll help you out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get back to it, specifically baseball in Taiwan, Mexico, and Italy. Level of play between AA, AAA, depending upon where you went.
Yeah, I would say, and when I first started my first travels, I always they kind of start out with when I was trying to do these winter ball things, trying to get back from AAA to back to the major leagues, get to be seen by scouts. So when I played in Puerto Rico and the Dominican, that major league quality there. League players there, they have their pride in their home country and their hometowns, and they all have their teams, and so they play, which is good for them because they're playing baseball throughout they take a little break after the season, and they kind of catch about maybe midway through their winter season, and they're playing big games and they're tuned up. So when they come back to spring training, they're sharp and they're ready to go. So that's when I went there. So that was like Major League Baseball quality. I would say then when I went to Mexico, now Mexico's always been classified as a AAA league.
Okay.
Close to AAA, maybe a little bit underneath AA and 3/4 perhaps. But, they got some good baseball players there. Some teams are good. Some teams are pretty bad, whatever. Taiwan, I would say they were probably close to a AAA level.
Okay.
Italy, maybe a AA-ish, little AA and a 1.25, whatever, kind of break it up. But, when I was playing those countries, when I was pitching there, you had to be good. If you made a mistake and didn't pitch well, they get you. So it didn't matter if it's Italy or Mexico, Taiwan or wherever. You had to go out and play, and there, it was competitive, good baseball. And I always say, if you did good, I don't care what league it is anywhere in the world. If you do good and dominate it, I always felt that you should get an opportunity. Even if you dominate low A ball here in the States, that guy should get a chance real soon to be seen or looked at by the major league team. Right. I felt the same way. I went to Mexico. I dominated Mexico. I went down to Taiwan. I dominated that place. I dominated in Italy. Everywhere I end up going, I always dominate. I say, someone should give you an opportunity when you dominate somewhere. See for yourself. I always say, why did they just bring me into a spring training one of those years and see what he's got. If not, just cut him loose. But that's part of the struggle and how the game worked, and I gave it my best shot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you, again, after reading it, you were successful wherever you went. I mean, you were really good. And again, there were opportunities, timing, numbers, whatever it was. It just didn't happen to work out for you. But you kept on looking to go back and live that dream again. Go back to the pitching specifically. How fast do you think you were throwing? Any ideas?
When I was in the major leagues, now
Yeah.
I always got to explain this because they use the different radar guns now
Yes.
today as compared to when I played.
Yeah.
They used to measure the ball would come out of your hand, and the numbers would zero in when it got to the end of to the catcher's glove.
Right.
So as the ball goes to the air, there's wind resistance, right? And the ball would be slower at the end. Now they get it out of the hand more so, and it's at a higher speed.
Gotcha.
So I think people say really it's about 3 miles per hour, maybe 3 to 4, roughly in there, say 3. So now when I was in the major leagues, the fastball wasn't my big pitch.
Right.
I'd say my fastball is kind of an average speed, which was mostly say 86, 87 up to, I'd say I hit it. If I got to like 91 a few times, maybe I touched 92 up pitch, but roughly in that range. And I kind of took speeds on and off anyways, just to keep hitters off balance. So now when I went to these other countries, I think, as you get older and you just keep rearing in another couple hundred innings a season. I was pitching year after year in Taiwan, over 200 innings a year.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
In the minor leagues before I got to major, I was throwing like 170 something innings. Now, God, they got guys here. They only pitch up to 80 innings in a season, the minors. And now the guys pitching more than that. We got to save them for the end of the year. We just had the ball and we threw it. And I always feel the more you pitch, the stronger you get, really. But, year after year, you do start to slow down. I think that happens no matter what. So when I got to Taiwan, in the mid 1990s to the end of, my last year was in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I don't think I was touching 90s. I bet you I was like mid to maybe upper 80s on the roughly in there. But that wasn't my forte. My forte was hitting spots, changing speeds, change up, throwing curveball sliders. I had 4 different pitches. I was always just to keep batters off bounce. That was my game.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's real pitching, right? That is real pitching, as opposed to what you see today. I think I read in the back of the book, I think, in terms of, things have changed. So we're going to get to that in a minute, because I want to get your thoughts on that too. I'm looking at my notes. You were, listen, look, 34-30 isn't anything to shake your nose at as a major league pitcher with the Brewers, right?
Yeah.
144 innings pitched, 181 strikeouts, 13-7. You started opening day, right? And then, you ran into some, even 12-12, and 9-8 aren't that bad,
Right. Yeah, I didn't think. But people's opinions change quickly on you. Yeah. I always felt, my ERA kind of got a little skewed there, but I attribute that to a few pretty bad games, which happened, but it screw up your numbers. I remember one game was, what year is it? 91. My first game, I went 1 inning plus and I gave up 600 runs. Just
there you go. Yeah, that'll.
But now you're trying to chase that ERA for the rest of the year, kind of in a way. So I had a lot of good games. I was eventually, for most of that 91 season, which was my last year at the Brewers.
Right.
I was leading the team in wins. And till the end of the year, then they took me out of the rotation and, that sort of thing. And
how does that decision, how does that come? How do they tell you that?
Well,
they just tell you. Say it again.
The coaches would come up to you and say, hey, we're going to change your role here a little bit. We're going to put you out in the bullpen now. And, they'll say something like, we want to get you some innings out there. We're going to have someone else start. They kind of tell you who, and we feel you need to work on some things. They'll say a lot of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then, well, okay, that's your new role. And no matter what, you just got to take the ball when you get it and hope to always be good.
Right. Right.
Sometimes minor leagues, I got some, I never thought when I was back on in AAAs on any of the organizations I went to, I never gave you the ball. if I would have had that opening, in my opinion, I could have kicked into my good old gear, my groove and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think I would have been fine. But, sometimes they say you're starting tomorrow. Here's the ball, you get the ball the next day. And if you're not good, well, that was, that might've been a mistake. It's timing and breaks and all that kind of stuff. And it always comes back to that, I go, if they would have handed me that ball that day and I would have thrown a shutout, hey, they would have gotten all high on you. But, it depends on how things go. It's just hard.
Curious to know any kind of interesting things that stick out on any mound visits, and what's said. We don't know. What do they say on a mound visit when you're in a tight situation or they're pulling you out? Do they say anything, the managers?
Oh yeah. Oh God, they say a lot of things. Sometimes the pitch coach comes out to talk to you, and it can be, hey, I'm just coming out here, we're just giving a little break. Just slow it down a little bit. It's going to give you a little. It's a day game. It's a little hot. We're just coming here to just give you a little breather, catch a breath. And all right, well, who's the next batter? And then we start talking about him real quick. And the umpire goes, hey, let's break it up now.
Right.
That, or hey, get your head out of your blank. And what we're supposed to work this guy this way, and you tried to do this and it didn't work. And well, I tried. Sometimes the risk is greater than the reward, but sometimes when the risk doesn't come through, you get a butt. They'll do that right there on the mound to you, and then they'll talk to the catcher. Hey, is he hitting the spots? And your catcher's going to be honest. Hey, he's hitting them. They're just doing a good job. Or now he's kind of hanging them. And they might say, hey, I think we should go to the bullpen. You're like, hey, you're my catcher, but they got to be honest. So
they have to. Right.
Maybe a scolding. It'd be a pep talk. It might be a little break. It might be just talk a lot about a lot of things that are just not even returning to about baseball. Kind of like in the movie Bull Durham, they were talking about the guy getting married and what kind of wedding gifts they should give him. And you never know. Sometimes we're just killing time. We're going to bring the pitcher in. He needs a couple more pitches. And they'll say, how about them ribs? Did you go to that restaurant around the block in Kansas City? That the barbecue ribs? Oh, yeah. You never know.
Good. Like that. Strikeouts. What was a tough batter you faced, and who would knock you around a little bit? Anybody consistently?
Some guys had my number. When people ask, that's a common question. People ask me, who are the toughest hitters? So I'd like to give two names.
Okay.
One of them, everybody in the world should know. And another one, like, maybe I heard that name before or not. So I'll go with the obvious guy. George Brett, the Kansas City Royals, was a tough guy to pitch to. He stood way off the plate, and you figure there's no way he can reach an outside pitch. And I throw a ball in the outside corner, and he'd step out there and hit a line drive off the center field fence. Well, if he's cheating and lunging out there, then I'm going to bust him in and, get him. Well, I do that. He'd pull those hands in and just whip that bat through and drive the ball down the right field line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to make sure he gets, this pitch, that pitch. He was able to sit back, see it, hit it where it's pitched, and did a great job. Obviously, he did that to a lot of people, and he's all doing that. So George Brett, I give a lot of credit to. The other guy's name was Cecil Espy.
Oh, Cecil, yes.
Maybe an older people might recall that old name. But I played against him in the minor leagues. He was coming up in the Rangers organization. He was coming up with the Brewers, and I had played against him a number of times. And God, he would just hit line drives and balls up the middle at me and stuff like that. And then in the major leagues, I think he was like 7 for 11 off me, in his time with the Rangers. And it's like, couldn't get that guy out. So I his name. Now, the funny thing is, the first day I arrived in Taiwan,
he was there, right?
He was on my team. All of a sudden, I up there, and there's Cecil Espy, my teammate now. So, he got to but the story he brought up once is the best knockdown pitch I ever threw in the major leagues happened to be against him. First pitch, I put it right underneath his chin. I flat backed him, and he was his eyes got a little crazy looking and stuff. So we talked about that as teammates in Taiwan and stuff. But so I give him a little credit. I love Cecil, but he was a tough.
Very cool. Very fun. Let's see. What else would I say? Let's go to today. Okay. Baseball has changed. That runner at second base, stupid. I don't like it. I've come to grips with the pitch clock. I've come to grips with the 2 disengagements to first base, right? And the guy is most likely going to take off. We talked about pitching more than they're going 6 innings around pitch counts, and you talk about the old school guys, you and all the old school guys. I mean, there were no such things. I mean, you look at Nolan. I remember seeing pictures of Nolan Ryan after games, and Seaver, I think too, two of my favorites, with arms and ice in buckets after the game, throwing 140 pitches, and they would be on a 5 pitcher rotation, and they come out again and they throw 150 pitches, and so things have changed, and so have a ton of these Tommy John surgeries. So it's real interesting to see what was on in the past when I was watching these guys play, and you, I'm sure, were too, and then to now in terms of basically coddling these guys, and then these stupid rules changes with the man on second base. I
hate that rule with the runner on second base. To me, it's called they push the game to little kid baseball.
I said Little League. I was going to say Little League. Yeah.
Son, as a kid, they're playing in these tournaments, and they had several games in a day, so they had to get these games through. So they're gonna get them all in, and there was a tie. They did this. They called it the California rules, and they put a guy in second base. Okay, that's for little kids. But man baseball, Major League Baseball, the best baseball in the world, played by the best men in the world, and they kind of put that in. So I really hate that. And then the game has kind of changed away. Maybe, small balls kind of sneaking back a little bit, but they really got away from it. But I just feel that, when you play in that man on second now, they don't ever try to bunt.
No, but Don, it drives me crazy.
And a little bit, because they played the game. Because if you bunt the guy, now there's one out, then you strike the guy out. Okay, whatever. But I think that they could use it to this degree. If the visiting team doesn't score in the top half of an extra inning game, you're the home team. Bunt them over. Now you got a guy in third with one out. Now you got a sac fly and a lot. The strikeout kind of kills you again. But if you just put the ball in play, you can get the run in instead of having those things happen. And you need a base hit to get the guy in from second base, basically.
Yes.
So and if you don't get him in, you're tied anyways. Just go to the other inning and see if they score a run, then you play out to do what you got to do. But if they don't score a run, again, I would say bunt the guy to third, and then, a base hit wins it. They got to play the infield in, and then you punch it through. A hard hit ball gets through, and, a lot of things can happen. So I'd like to see a little strategy there. But, the game has changed, like you said, the way they use pitchers. 5 innings, 100 pitches. They're yanking guys out. Like I said, I can't see Nolan Ryan and great pitchers in the past being okay with being taken out in the 5th inning, even 4 1/3 innings, because their pitch count's a little high, or it's the 3rd time through the lineup. They use all these analytical things, which there are some percentages and stuff to that.
Right.
But whatever happened to the old gut feeling, a manager making a decision and stuff like that? They don't ever do that anymore. They got to play the book.
Yeah. It's not what we grew up with. Change. I mean, somebody suggested, and I didn't mind this suggestion for the extra innings, play 2 extra innings regularly.
Yeah.
Then in the 11th inning, put a guy on second.
Sure,
okay,
yeah.
At least give him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least you're playing. I mean, it's all done to speed up the game. Shit. Oh, pardon me. I said shit in front of everybody. I will sit in the stands and watch a 7. I don't care. I love sitting in the ballpark watching an extra inning game. I don't care. Stop with the speeding up the game.
So it is exciting.
Yes.
They wanted to speed the game up, so these games were starting to push to 4 hours in a 7-3 game or something like that. I can see that. So back to talk about the pitch clock. I don't mind that.
Right.
I pitched very quickly anyway, so that was right up my alley. I would never have any problem with that.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I don't think they shouldn't have called it a pitch clock. They should call it a batter clock. They're the ones who are eating up all the time. After every pitch, they step out of the box, just their batting gloves and do their whole thing and get back in and stuff like that. They're the ones who are chewing up the clock. So, but anyways, I think the pitch clock is fine. The base is getting a little bit bigger. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
So some of those rules were okay, but throwing the ball only 2 times at first, I kind of don't like this. You got to throw over sometimes to break the timing up. We used to sometimes throw the ball like 5-6 times in a row.
Right.
I did when Ricky Henderson would be on base, because I'm going to make him dive back 6-7 times, at least try to slow him down and knock the wind out of him a little bit.
Yes.
But I think instead of 2 times, 3 times would be still fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to that point, because I hate the idea was I think they wanted to give the favor to the base runner so they can have more stolen bases, because that was starting to dwindle down, because if you play for the home run, you don't need to steal bases.
Right.
But I just didn't like how, after 2 throws, and then they can just basically run on you and cheat on you that way. So I think maybe 3 would have been better.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think it would affect the game that much. Just add another one. It's not that big a deal.
Right.
I don't think it's a big deal. Listen, we've been on longer than I thought, but I'm just having such a great time talking to you.
Sure.
It's always fun talking as a baseball fan, seeing your baseball card and then talking to somebody who played the game is an honor for me because of being such a big baseball fan. So kudos to you for all that you went through, all that you persevered, all that you did. I mean, it wasn't easy, especially for your family. Kudos to her and to your son for them, again, persevering, because it's a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure for her. And then you finally got to be able to, at the end, you got to be dad. And then are you coaching now?
Yeah, I coach
Good.
baseball, and I've been doing that for the past 20-something years.
Yeah. Awesome.
Teaching
And
the
you're
game,
loving
getting
it
out
probably more. You're probably loving that more than anything else.
Well, it's good. I had opportunities to go coach professionally.
Yeah.
Some independent leagues, and some organizations in the minor leagues asked me if I wanted to be a minor league pitching coach. And, I liked the idea, but I was like, God, I've just been traveling for all these years. My son was getting older.
Yep.
By the time he's born, about 8 years old, 9 years old, that I'd been away. And so it was time for me to stick home and stay put. So I was able to help, be a part of the coaching staff at the local high school here for many years. And so I get my baseball fix. I do baseball camps. I do a lot of baseball stuff. So I get my fix, and I'm part of the game, and, you can never give it up totally,
Yeah, that's great. Can I ask, how old is Logan now?
My son, Logan, and those stories being chased by those dogs in that park in Taiwan.
Oh my gosh.
He was probably about 4 or 5 years old at that time, but he's now a 33-year-old young man.
He's my daughter's age. Oh my gosh.
Right.
And what's he doing?
He works for a company that he does a lot of stuff with marketing and, commercials and that kind of thing. I sometimes when I try to talk about it, he always tells me I don't explain it right. Kids and their dads is no difference with anything like that. But yeah, he does a really good job into that part of the business.
Good. It was good. It was a good way, the book, it was a good way to, obviously personalize it and go and explain, really, besides the pressure on baseball, hey, you guys had a family. This is real. So it was good to get to know them through the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The whole idea of the book was just being an American, traveling the world, getting to see that. But you always had to be super good, because as soon as you had one bad game, the management and everything, they're already thinking about getting rid of you if you had another one. Battling the culture and, getting to the game and actually pitching and doing well, expectations and just the crazy things that happen to you. And you just got to take it day from day, and just, the different things that happen around the world. It's just so, like, to me, I just wanted the book to be an adventure. Pitching to the corners is like playing to the different parts of the world.
Right.
My post MLB career abroad, I just want to kind of give it a little bit what it'd be about, and I talk about on the Olympic team early on, things getting going, take it to the major leagues at the, then pushing through the end of the book, how the countries and all these different parts around the world. And in the middle of all that was that Major League Baseball strike, which, had an effect on me. So I kind of give an insight, from my own personal view, and give a little behind the scenes talk about how that worked and what took place. People probably don't know about that, but older people remember, oh God, those replacement player things, and how that affected the game.
Yeah, that was a good chapter. It brought back those memories. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had the People Are Strange chapter, just kind of the weird character people I've gotten to come across over the years. And I don't know if you noticed that, but all the different chapters were different rock songs, favorite rock songs over the years. So
I did notice that. Yes, absolutely.
Written chronologically. It was written by topics, because Mark Knutson, who helped me write it.
Mhm.
He's actually a former teammate of mine. We were both
Yes.
in the same
Sure.
trade from the Astros to the Brewers way back when.
Right.
Writer, media guy. So he wrote out, he came up with that idea about, let's do it by topics instead of chronologically. Like, okay, that'll be a different little flair to it. So, and like I said, each chapter has a, who will stop the rain, kind of talks about all the rain things and weather events and earthquakes and things I lived through. And another part, talk about language and food, and
Yep.
they had their other
Food.
topics. So,
and I love 10 because that's one of my favorite songs ever. Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. I mean,
yeah,
perfect. Don, listen, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Learned a lot about you and what it was like for you and what it's like to be overseas and doing what you had to do to survive.
Yeah, there's a lot of surviving. I won't say anything, but if we're out of time, but the one chapter, the rambling, gambling man, the corruption of gambling in Asia, and the gangsters wanted me to do it, and I had to find a way to not do that and still get out of that building alive. So
that was a good chapter
for people who are watching that really want to see what that was about. There's
Folks,
the book right there.
There you got to get the book.
Pitch into the book.
Go get it. It's a fun read. Don and Mark did a great job. So much fun to read, and I read it quickly. I read it in 4 days.
Yeah, get it going, and just sometimes
it's fun.
It's stop, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, my friend.
All right, had a good time. Anytime, if you want to talk more about some of that book or baseball again, look me up.
We'll do it. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for coming on. I really had a good time with you.
Yeah, thank you. Me too.
Okay. Take care, Don. Thanks. Have a great rest of the night, and let's see what happens the rest of the season.
All right. We'll do.
All right. Take care. All right. Well, that was an extraordinary conversation with Don August. Learned a lot. He went through a lot, persevered, did what he had to do to continue his baseball career. He wasn't giving up. And the book tells you, and it reads really well. Like I said, I don't usually read books that quickly, but I really wanted to see how it all turned out. And you can get this book anywhere books are sold. Contest. Enter the contest. If you want to enter it online, my Twitter account is at PHILSFANATIC at Phil's Fanatic. Mitch Bernstein. What 2 things does Don say he needed to have or do when playing overseas? He mentioned one of those very early on in the podcast. Guess correctly, and you will win a couple of baseball cards or maybe more. We'll get together and say what team you want, and I got a bunch of them. So one thing materially that he needed to have all the time where he went, and what did he have to do to make things livable while he was overseas? He mentioned it at the beginning. That's it for now, folks. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for those of you who were watching me. I'm guessing maybe Lou was watching from a hospital bed, or maybe he's home. I don't know, but wish Lou the best and recovering from what he's got. We will let you know what's going on next week, but we appreciate you being here. And my words for tonight are going to be kind to everybody, and don't stress. Laugh when you can. All right, everybody, take care. Mitch Bernstein signing off for the Extravaganza with Lou and Mitch on the Captain Lou Sports Network. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.